Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is one that has been requested a lot. It's one that quite honestly I have been putting off, but we're doing it today. Different events happen in our lives that ultimately bring us to this point where we make a decision to give our lives to Him, to surrender our lives to Him. And I remember growing up, sometimes I would hear people talking about testimonies and sharing your testimony, and I felt like I needed to have some crazy thing that happened to me or go through something really difficult or really hard in order to have a true testimony, and that is simply not true. The stories of how God brings us to Him are also different, and every single one is miraculous, because whether it was some crazy dramatic event that God used to bring you to Him, or whether it was a bunch of seemingly ordinary things that over time brought you to that point, the reality is that no testimony is ordinary, because every single time somebody gives their life to Jesus, what has happened there is that He has brought us from death to life. Ephesians 2 says that we were dead in our trespasses, but God, being rich in mercy because of the great love with which He loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. And so in Revelation it says that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And so we overcome ultimately because of the blood of Jesus and because of what He did for us in making a way for us to be restored to relationship with God. And so we overcome because of Jesus's blood, because of what He did for us. And growing up, my family went to a Catholic church until I was about 6 years old. And really my memories from that were playing in the pews. And during this time, so my dad is a truck driver, and he would be doing these truck driving routes, and somehow came across the 700 Club radio show, which is like a Christian broadcast. And he basically stumbled across it from what he shared with me, and then started tuning in and listening over a period of time and hearing about Jesus, hearing about the gospel. And after a period of time of listening to this broadcast, he actually called in to the operator and gave his life to Jesus. And I always just get emotional thinking about that and think that it is so incredible, because God can literally use anything, and He used that in my dad's life. And I think about the childhood that I had, and for me growing up in a Christian home and going to a Christian school, which I'll share all of that in a minute, and the Gospel of John, and he would teach us about Jesus, and all of that experience that I had and that foundation that I had for my life happened first because of the work that God did in my dad's life. And it was actually really cool. I wrote a blog post about this a couple years ago, but my dad and I used to do father-daughter retreats at this Christian camp, Hume Lake. I've talked about it before. I actually go up there still with about how the year before he met my mom, he was in this horrible motorcycle accident where he went down on the freeway and really should have died, but there was this car that started doing zigzags behind him to protect him from other cars coming and running him over. And that was before he met my mom, before he knew Jesus. And I just think of the work that God was slowly doing in his heart to draw him to Him for the sake of his own life, but also so that he could lead our family to Jesus. And so that moment of my dad calling into the radio station and giving his life to Jesus, that happened when I was, I believe, 6 years old. And so at that time, my dad got plugged into a Christian church in the area and Christian school. And so really all around me in my classes, in church, in Sunday school, and all this stuff, I was hearing about who Jesus is and what He did and the gospel. And I remember there being several times that my Sunday school teacher would share the gospel and invite us to pray along as he prayed to receive Jesus and to give our lives to Him. And so I remember doing that, like, honestly, it was something I wanted to do. And I remember telling him that I had, prayed along with the Sunday school teacher, but wasn't really sure. And so, obviously looking back, I can know that yes, as much as I was able to understand it, that I had made that decision. But there on that day, my dad sat down and prayed with me, and I prayed and gave my life to Jesus. And so that is sort of the definitive moment that I remember of giving my life to Him. But of course, I know there's so much more I could share, so many more details and just ways that God has worked in my life. But I hope that gives you a little overview of my testimony and allows you to know me a little bit more. And I hope that it encouraged you.